Okay, so this discussion is going to be on upcoming seasons and considerations for that. And I personally have just one question. So to raise your hand, you go under the bottom of your screen under participants. If you click on participants, it should open a box to your right and you'll see all the participants. At the bottom of that screen, there should be a little button that says raise hand.
Okay.
If you can't find that, feel free. Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a lot of questions kind of to get us started. I'm hoping that it kind of points us in a good direction. And I'm thinking that this might actually take us beyond an hour, and I don't want to go too far beyond an hour today because I think we just all get brain burnout. So if we get to the hour point and we still have a lot of things that we want to discuss or questions we want to address, I'm very happy to put together a part 2 and just kind of continue the conversation early next week. So that's kind of my thinking. So what I was thinking for kind of an outline to guide our discussion were a few questions, and again, feel free to add more to the chat box, and then if we don't get to them today, we can certainly tackle them in a part 2. But just to kind of start out with the immediate future, assuming that Safer at Home ends on the expiration date of May 26th, and we're all back in the office and back in our box offices opening back up, do you send your season brochure to hit mailboxes right away, or do you delay it for those of us that are kind of in that timeline and have it ready to go? If we're not back at that time, and that is your normal timeline to send it kind of beginning of June, do you send it anyway, even though your box office and everything is closed down? So those are some things we can discuss. And I kind of was thinking we could possibly put a pros and cons chart together for both of those. You know, we're not going to answer these questions. We're just going to get lots of discussion and information out there. And so then for those of you that are, and then, so we can kind of talk about that. And then as we move on in that discussion, for those that are still working on programming their season, who aren't ready with a brochure or generally would go out later, if you're still programming, are you making changes? Are you rethinking the programs that you're going to be doing starting in fall? And then kind of moving in then to some more of the nitty gritty details of, are you rethinking ticket pricing? You know, are you going to amend some of your thoughts on what you had been planning? Should we be anticipating lower attendances next season? And if so, what, if anything, should we be doing about that? And then finally, if Arts Midwest does not happen in September, how do you program a season if you're going to program a 21-22 season, and or do you not program a 21-22 season? Do you take a year off and try to bounce back from everything? So like I said, lots and lots of things to discuss. So let's kind of start it out with if we assume that Safer at Home ends May 26th and we all get to go back to work and we can start reopening our box offices. For those that would normally announce beginning of June, do you think that's a good time to start sending your brochure? Just initially, the pro could be people will get excited, people will be ready to buy tickets and get out, and it may be a good thing. The con may be, is it too soon? Are people not going to be ready? So thoughts and opinions on that. Jen.
I don't know that I have a good answer. I can just tell you what we're planning to do at this point, which is we would have normally announced our season this past Monday, April 20th. So we are right now a little bit behind where we would have normally been had we just gone ahead. And so we're tentatively planning to make some sort of season announcement kind of mid-May. We haven't really put a hard and fast date to it because we're allowing it to kind of happen as it happens. But we are working on our brochure, and I just got a proof of it. And you know, so we're working through that as though we're going to send it out. My challenge, the line that I'm trying to walk is, how long do we hold off without cutting ourselves up at the knees for next season if things actually happen? So I don't want to wait on it too long. I want to be able to send something fairly soon. I want to be cognizant of the timing, obviously, but I also don't want to put us so far behind that we spend most of the fall season playing catch up and trying to get people in. So right now we're planning to mail a brochure in mid-May, and we won't physically have people on campus until obviously after May 26th, but we're able to return phone calls and things like that for the time being. So if the brochure goes out, we can at least return calls and things.
Thanks. Awesome. Stephanie?
Actually, this question is kind of going back to those that have already announced. I know Jared, the Overture, announced last week. What has the response been? Has it been standoffish? And I know, Amy, your season's out there. And anyone else, I'm just curious for those that are kind of have their materials out in the middle of this. Do you feel like there's more engagement, less?
This is Jared from Overture, and we have had overwhelming, just wonderful response. Ordinarily, we do our season launch always happens sometime in April, sometime in early April. We bumped ours back by about a week from what we had originally planned. It was supposed to be the first Tuesday, I think, in April. We bumped it back to what I think it was the Monday the 13th was when we announced our season. Tim Sowers did a Facebook Live. It was actually pre-recorded, although it looked pretty live, complete with flub ups and silly Tim humor and things like that. But we had tens of thousands of people watching, and 20,000. I think we had 19,000 viewers that night who logged on to the video itself and either watched the whole thing or watched a part of it. And then within about 24 hours after that, we had an additional 20,000 people view that video. Huge numbers. And I think that's, what we should be expecting, because everybody's got time and a computer right now, or most people have time and a computer right now to do that. In the past, we have done it live from Overture Hall. It has been rebroadcast on some local stations in whole or in part, and then of course we did it on Facebook Live in the past few years as well. But the numbers this time were not just staggering, but positive. We always get someone, at least a couple of people who are in the Facebook Live chat going, "Oh my God, they're bringing Wicked again. How boring." And this year, we didn't have anybody. No, everybody was just like, "Oh my God, thank you for bringing literally anything at all." And it was pretty heartening, I would say. And now that we have shows on sale too, we're seeing decent numbers. It's hard to sort of compare them. We haven't had a normal season recently. I mean, we've had Hamilton, and we've had new CEOs, and we've had all sorts of things happen. So it's hard to, and I got here 2 years ago. So for me to tell you, oh, it looks pretty normal, I have no idea what that looks like here. So I don't know that I would be positioned to give you a good update on that right now, but I'm sure we can provide some better statistical pieces on that in the days to come. But it feels good, and the numbers look okay to me for having just put on sale to subscribers only some 40 shows.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jared. Thanks for that feedback. Yeah, the optimist in me wants to say that even if our patrons are going through financial difficulties and maybe aren't going to be able to buy tickets or subscribe as they normally would in the past, the hope would be that they're still supportive, like you've said, that, hey, we're still doing what we're doing, we're still getting programs out there, and that there would be a positive response. Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is Amy in Appleton. So we announced our shows the week that everything shut down. So we initially had a strong response from the shows that we announced, and then unfortunately we had to close, and we've had really nobody in our box office to take sales. So We have one person that is able to respond via email to incoming inquiries and such. But unfortunately, during this time where we're closed, we can't actively take a lot of orders. So yeah, we had an initial strong response, and then we're hoping once we're able to reopen and staff that box office again, that we're able to get people excited in buying tickets again. But during this time, it's really been about shows that have been canceled or postponed and taking care of those needs versus getting people excited to buy tickets about the shows that we just announced. So it's kind of been a shadow on those new shows that we just announced. So right now I'm in the process of taking a look at the shows that I have for the fall and trying to connect with those agents to make sure that one, they're still feeling like the tour is going to happen. Because I have gotten some contacts from some of the promoters that we worked with, and some of those shows are starting to go away. So Jared, I don't know if you've gotten some of those calls, but the promoters are feeling less comfortable because they're at risk for those shows. So those shows for us are starting to disappear on our calendar for the fall. And so it'll be interesting to see some of the other tours if they're still able to make a go of it. That's my concern of all the shows that I've scheduled and have confirmed, are all of them going to be viable and stay on the calendar. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
Jared, did you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. I am seeing some of those fall shows. A couple of them have dried up. That was relatively early on. What I'm seeing right now is that any promoter show that we have, I think I can say that with almost 100%, that 100% of them are taking avails in either 1 year hence or sometime in mid Q2 of 21, looking for avails as alternates. So they're not necessarily drying up immediately, but they're all looking for alternate dates at this point.
Thanks, Jared. And that's another, thing that some of us may run into is if we have acts with international artists, we have no idea what is going to happen with borders and visas and all of that stuff. So I don't I don't think I have any international artists or anything in my upcoming season, but for those that do, that's a whole nother discussion. Tiana, go ahead.
Yeah, so an agent and I came to an agreement. We had an international artist for October, and we decided that with so many unknowns because of visas, we just, he's working on other routes that maybe it's not the right time. And so I've had a bunch of agents want to move to spring of 2021. Right now, March is really heavy for us. And we're taking a look at that as well and seeing what the best option is. Because even if we do come back, I'm from Carthage in Kenosha at a college. Even if we do come back, it's going to make people feel a little uneasy, and the students, and making sure we're prepared to have everything in place for safety reasons and making sure everyone feels comfortable coming back into our venues. So right now we only have one guest artist in the fall. So it's kind of been being pushed for us, and not just our decisions, but agents are looking at it as well for us.
And Tiana, do you usually send a brochure? And if so, are you holding off on that at the moment?
Yeah, so our season announcement was supposed to be April 15th. We're looking at mid-May now, and we're going to do that as our e-newsletter launch. Someone said it last week in one of our sessions about doing a digital brochure, so we have opted for that. I mean, we've always had our brochure digitally, but it actually got mailed out first to a lot of, for like subscriptions and getting that on board. So we decided, because colleges are looking for where we can budget cut, and hopefully a lot of our operations doesn't get cut. So if that's something I can save and do less of a printed brochure to have on the campus and to mail out, we're looking at those options. So right now we're hoping our digital brochure will still launch in our time frame at end of May. And then, so our subscriptions would start, we're gonna do July instead. So everything's kind of a little bit later, but that's also because of our guest artists being later. Being at a college, we're also working with faculty. They're concerned like of our theater productions because we have signed contracts again. And what if they don't happen? So I'm in a lot of discussions about that, of how we make all that work, and do we continue with marketing it when we just don't know? So lots on the table for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Being part of a college, we're sort of playing the wait and see game of praying that we don't go to digital learning for the fall semester, which I know some colleges have done across the US. I don't think anybody in Wisconsin yet has announced that, but we're so tied to then the operation of that even if businesses open up, but colleges again still operate but are doing virtual learning, that definitely changes how we do our programming. Jared.
Hey, I just wanted to mention that I've been to a couple of webinars on empathetic audience engagement, and some of my team members have been working in that area as well recently, and I think it is important to know that most of our patrons understand that we're in the boat that we're in with regards to cancellations. I don't think anybody is going to be confused or angered or put off when we start having shows again, or we get to a point where we're opening things back up and then we still have to pull some of those shows. I think our audiences are going to be pretty empathetic about that situation, and I think it's our job to be to better understand what their needs are moving forward too, and communicate with them in that way. And I can send some of this stuff to you, Lonnie, and if you want to send it back out to everybody else. But it basically, I think that we've taken a tack of making sure that everything that was canceled on our website specifically is all in the background now. You can still get to the pages that show which things are canceled and that sort of stuff, but everything that's front and center now is talking about looking forward, moving, we can't wait until this is happening. We actually have changed the tagline of our season launch to what comes next, and things that are forward thinking. So I think people are anxious for that, and also at the same time understanding that none of us really know what this is about yet. So I'll send some of that stuff along now.
Thank you. The show will go on. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it is, I think it sends a message to our patrons. Obviously we are all in this together, and we are understanding of the situation, and none of us know, what the next month or two holds. And so I think that, as Jared, you've mentioned, is if we're moving forward and we're looking to the future, it's a positive thing for our patrons and our donors to be seeing that we're planning for the best. And that's a very optimistic outlook. And that is uplifting for people no matter what situation they're in right now, because it can be a very depressing time. And if we take the tack of like, oh, we're not going to be able to open up in September, it's going to be so long, I think we can't necessarily get into that rut. And so I really appreciate that, like you say, that forward thinking, that looking forward, because even if, the reality is that come September, we're still not out of this and we have to start canceling or postponing our September and October shows, that's that, it'll happen. And again, we're still going to keep looking toward the future, that this will come to an end at some point, and we will be back and be able to connect with our communities again. So I appreciate those comments. Who else has any feedback or experiences with what you're doing currently with your season? Mary.
There we go. We're kind of in a similar boat. We typically announced our season mid-May, went on sale to subscribers first, then what we call friends, and then the general public. We're just looking at pushing it back maybe 2 weeks because of that issue of not having the office open or people in the box office, and just really, really hoping that we really can have people back in there May 26th, especially since, like most of us, a lot of our season subscribers are those older folks. They don't want to do it online. They either fill out their form or they come in the office and walk through it with us. So it just didn't seem practical to put it out even to them before we're open. But I agree with the theory that we don't want to wait too long and be too close to the hopefully the start of the season in September. So I think we're just going to go about June 1st and then roll it out gradually to subscribers, friends, and the general public that way. We normally would print and mail out thousands of brochures before that subscriber date. We are also opting to wait on the print, and we're just going to put it out digitally first. Haven't quite decided when we're going to go to the print and mail option, but we just keep looking at that and re-evaluating. We're also finding, though, we wanted to change up our brochure just a little to save on cost. So any changes that we're making, I think the whole COVID thing makes it more palatable to people. Oh yeah, this is a good year to cut costs, or this is a good year to delay a little bit. So kind of taking advantage of that too for some ongoing changes.
That's great. Thanks, Mary. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I really think that if I send a brochure too soon before I have a box office open, I'm just going to I already get these messages on the box office voicemail. I really wish you'd call me back. And then they don't leave a phone number or anything. They just sort of whine at me on the voicemail. Thank you. So I don't want a slew of those too, because those are, as much as I want to help, it doesn't help me if you just complain and don't leave a phone number. The other thing I was going to mention too, in my brochure, for those of you that do kind of a little welcome letter or something in the beginning, I actually was very, very candid about, I am writing this during a safer at home isolation period. And part of that message, which I can send you guys my draft if you want to see it, is, I have hope that because of this, we are going to reemerge, and it will be like a renaissance period at some point where we, after having been away from the arts, for so long, and live arts and the ability to come together, that we're going to have an even deeper appreciation for these experiences, and the value of these will be more felt. And so that's my hope coming out of this, that this is all intended for good, and we won't take live arts and the ability to come together in our communities for granted, as we may have before this. So that's kind of the message that I'm leading with in my brochure, which just acknowledges what we've just come out of, the cancellations from the previous season, and what we're going into, that this is, we really need to appreciate this, because as we all know, other organizations have had to cut programming. Alverno used to have a really robust guest artist series that just sort of went away. So, none of this is given for any of us. We all work very, very hard all year round to keep our programs going. And so I think, if we can continue to communicate to our patrons and donors that this is something we should be passionate about, and that we don't want to lose. I think those are all good messages to be sending out as we go into this time. So, any other comments of things that you're currently doing, considerations for your brochure, your season announcement, things like that? Matt, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. We did something when all of this first broke in interpreting the state guidelines. We are a non-essential business, but essential functions within that business can continue. And so we have had someone at our box office. It's not publicly open, but they are handling transactions. They process all of our checks and credit cards that come in for any part of the business. So that's critical to our survival. So we are able to handle guest inquiries that way, and it's gone fairly well. So that's how we interpreted the rules, that we could do that, and that's what we've been doing.
Thanks, Matt. Other comments or questions? Otherwise, I can kind of move on to the next kind of guiding question that I had on my list. If we are planning that we'll be definitely open and ready to go in September, for those of us that start up programming, and we've talked a little bit about this, what is your opinion on, like, what is the latest we should send? You know, we've talked kind of generally about, I don't want to send too late. What is people's opinion about how late is too late? I mean, obviously, if my first show is September 23rd might be too late. But you know, should I be, again, you know, because some of us are dealing with realities of within our organizations. Like, so for me, for an example, I'm in a college, and so my PR folks might be advising to wait, and I may be wanting to push it out. So, you know, is a month out still too late? Like, what are people's opinions on that? And again, not necessarily looking for the capital T truth answer, but just thoughts and opinions on how late, like, what should our deadline be if our season is starting up in September? What do we think is the time that we should be getting that out? Any thoughts on that? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm John from the Sherilyn Wilson Center box office. Hi guys. So this is coming from, I've been working from home and talking to a lot of the patrons from the Wilson Center, talking about the shows that we had to cancel, you know, in the past month and their reactions and stuff. I would feel too late would be any time past maybe like end of June into July area. Because the response I'm getting from a lot of patrons is we do have some older patrons who are nervous. They are concerned about their health, but they're also very antsy. And that's a lot of things that got is a lot of people want to come back and enjoy the arts. So this is kind of the time period where, you know, because they're also, I don't know, everyone's theaters, a lot of our patrons, some of them are older. They don't have a lot of other activities to do and other things to look forward to. So even if we can't say, cool, let's get everything going and we're going to promise that we're going to have shows in September, at least getting that information of what the next season is and things for them to look forward to can be a good message. But if you wait too long, I feel they are just going to start getting into a negative cycle themselves, as anyone would do when you're just sitting there and all you got is negativity. Just even at the positivity, like, hey, we will be back. We will have events coming up. Just is still enough as a good message to get out.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Other thoughts? Mary.
I think another consideration, and we mentioned this on a previous call, so it's kind of a reiteration, especially for those of us in Southeast Wisconsin, is if we wait too long and we do have things in September, we are now competing with more than what we were usually competing with in September, with Summerfest and Country USA and a whole lot of things that should have happened in the summer being pushed out to September's, and those dates have been announced already. So one of my concerns in waiting too long is people are going to be so excited to get out and do stuff, but if everybody else's dates are out there before ours, they're going to be buying tickets and doing other stuff. So I think especially in our corner of the state, that's a little bit of a concern as well. I would hope our first thing is scheduled for September 18th, which is a week later than usual. Once this all broke, I decided not to fill that week earlier spot. But looking at September 18th, I have to agree. I think I'd want our stuff out there by the end of June for sure, or as soon after Safer at Home ends as possible.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, and just for those of you that, I'll just throw this out there too. I agree that I think, a lot of our patrons that have been coming for years and years and years, they plan their whole calendar around this, and this is something they look forward to. So the psychology of that they are going to be able to move on would be a very positive thing for them to get that brochure. Even if they can't buy their tickets right away, they can mark their calendars. And one of the things that I've done for several years is offer ticket insurance. And I can explain a little bit more of that, but I think that might, if some of you have been thinking about going that direction, now might be a good time to add, some kind of ticket insurance where if they, want to buy right away, but they're still uncertain with where things are going, you can have a ticket insurance policy available. And then I think, hopefully people will buy with much more confidence, knowing that if something happens or if they get sick, they would have the ability to receive a refund or a credit towards that, which is something, like I said, we've been doing it for several years. And in most cases, I think it works really well for us. Most people don't use it, but I think that they buy tickets without, with greater certainty that they have that blanket. Kim, go ahead.
Hi, Kim Miller from the Wild Center in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I'm thinking about our first show, which is with a promoter, and it's, I think, the second weekend in September. First of all, the group is from Canada. Second of all, the audience tends to be over 900 people. And I'm thinking, won't this, what are we going to do if the Canadians can come, but let's say we are only able to gather in groups of 500? What are we thinking about that? Is this the wrong time to bring that up? What if we have size restrictions on our crowds?
That's a great point, Kim. I don't have that problem because I only have 388 seats. But no, that's a great thing to bring up for discussion. Stephanie, please go ahead.
We've had that discussion. I don't know if I mentioned before, I'm from the Widener in Green Bay, and we have over 2,000 seats. So obviously that could have a huge impact on our potential audience size. So what we've decided is we won't put any new events on sale until July or August, when we know what the requirements might be for social distancing. And we've already preliminarily, we work with TicketStar in Green Bay. They've gone through our seating chart essentially and figured out our capacities based on, seating patrons every other row, leaving the aisles open, all of that, so that if we do need to proceed with an event, we have a rough idea of where our capacity is at. So it's been helpful to do that. So we have a sense, because we have one show where there's already 1,000 tickets out. So basically we're not selling any more tickets until we have a sense of what the guidelines are going to be.
Thanks, Stephanie. Jillian, go ahead.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jillian from Lawrence University, also in Appleton. Kind of echoing what Stephanie was saying, we're kind of doing the same thing as looking to see we're waiting to see what the guidelines are going to be, but tentatively seeing if moving our concerts into a larger venue so that we can give patrons that space. If it's something that we think will, again, depending on what the guidelines are, is moving an act into one of our smaller spaces and then capping the capacity. So we're looking at a bunch of those things as well. Right now, we're not our brochure typically would have gone out April 1st, and we're thinking end of May, beginning of June, again, kind of once we hear more about sending out our brochure. And just from the earlier conversation, we are already looking at kind of having like rain dates for some of our fall concerts. Just so in case we need to move this, we already have something in mind on the calendar.
Awesome. Thanks, Jillian. Jared.
Hey, Jared again from Overture in Madison. Just thinking about this sort of staggered back in action, but only for 200 or maybe only for 50 or only for however many. The more I think about this, the less I like any of that. And the less I think it's going to be beneficial to patrons, because I think we're balancing this. I think we're collectively going to have to balance the notion that everybody wants to get back and do something, but the cost of doing that is potentially getting sick and or an uncomfortable situation. And what I mean by that is we've spent some time since I've been at Overture really evaluating and making sure that we are taking active steps to ensure that all patrons who come in are as comfortable as possible. And this is their home to see whatever show. And I know that we've all used language like that. We're all going through similar exercises throughout the lifespan of our theaters. But if you think about some of the options that we have right now, I know that there are places. McAllen, Texas has a couple places there have started doing thermometer temperature checks. They have a laser thermometer that will check everybody on entry. They have guidelines and stipulations and all that sort of stuff. I can't imagine a way to make someone feel more ostracized than telling them that their temperature is too high to come in the building. And then there are other factors like, well, we're going to have everybody stand in line to get in through the main front doors. So they have to be less than 6 feet apart to get through the doors unless we're doing something strange. Also our restrooms. I'm not sure how that's going to work because they have to monitor entrance and exit there too. So I think that there are a lot of things at work here. And I guess my statement to everybody is, if you have anybody's ear at the municipal or whatever level of government that you have that is assisting with the decision-making pieces of this, we know what we need to make the best experience for our patrons. So any information that we can get to those in charge of making the guidelines and then getting them out there, let's impact that at that level, because that's the place where I think we have the most impact and the place where the impact will be the most meaningful eventually, because I think that when we decide to come back at 50% capacity, I feel like we're setting ourselves up to have this situation where the trust that we so desperately need to have built with the audience members is at risk if we make the experience uncomfortable, or if people end up getting sick because they went out. We're really going to shoot ourselves in the foot in that case. So I don't really know that I have a great recommendation as to like how we're going to fix all this. Because it's so interconnected, but I'm just putting out there that there's a lot to consider. And if you have an idea about what makes how to do this best in your venue, whether it is to open 2 different entrances or have people only enter through one and exit through, whatever those things are, have those discussions, I think, with people who are contributing to the guidelines for reopening as much as possible.
Thanks, Jared. Jen.
I forgot to say this earlier, but I'm with Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And one of the discussions we're having at the university level in terms of when people return to work is once we're allowed back on campus, there's going to be a requirement for employees to wear masks for a while. And I don't know how long that'll go on. So one of my questions, I guess, for the group would be, have you had any discussions about if there are I don't know if there's going to be a mandate, but perhaps a strongly urged message for people to wear masks when they go out in public. Should we be requiring masks in our space, or what happens if people don't want to wear them, especially if you know, there could be a policy on the university campus that people are supposed to wear them. So then what do we do when we have patrons who don't want to wear them, and how do we deal with that?
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, that's a great, that's a great whole nother discussion. I think this is going to go into a part 2, so I'm taking notes. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Jared and Jen struck a nerve. If it's an awkward experience, if it doesn't feel natural, if they're still in the back of their mind the paranoia because the virus is out there, if we have a show where we need to sell out in order to pay for it, I have shows already on the calendar that I've sold out 1,000 people in September. What do I do? And I'm not going to be here, so I hesitate to advise my board too much. But if we can't create what is a normal experience, which may mean we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes to make it safer, but if it's not normal where the guests can feel safe and escape and have the kind of experience they're used to, I'm not sure we want to be doing it yet. And that's just my personal thought. But there's so much we don't know yet, so I'm just blowing smoke. And I'm from Manitowoc, the Capital Civic Center. I apologize for not saying so earlier. There's not much left up here.
From beautiful Manitowoc.
Beautiful Manitowoc.
Thanks, Matt. And that answers one of my questions, Matt, that you're still on track to retire in all this hoopla la-di-da.
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Mid-August, the search is on. They've got it from 67 applicants down to 14, and I bless you all.
Well, we bless you, and I'm glad that this didn't put a crink in your plan. Tiana, go ahead.
I know I'm thinking way far ahead, I'm sure. And I'm sure this will turn into more of a facility. Like, I feel like that's where our conversation is kind of getting to. But I know we're not there yet. And I know our state and federal governments haven't gone this far yet. But one of the concerns after listening to making sure we feel like we're getting a little bit back to normal and not putting that uneasiness on our patrons. But what if, you know, that whole scenario, what if we do have tracing? And our venue ends up being not a hot spot necessarily, but someone was affected. And then even though we're spacing everyone out, then they could be, and then it's trickling down, figuring out who got affected. And now that's out in the public, and that fear, and do events get canceled after that, which is not our fault, but it's, I don't know. So that's been on the back of my head of how we can't prevent it, but how do we think about that? And especially when they're talking right now that this will come back, or it will continue into fall. And that's why a lot of campuses are looking at, do we delay 2021? So just putting that maybe, Lonnie, on another day for discussion, because I don't want to get too much in a Debbie Downer, but I just don't want to see our venues being a hot spot and then people don't feel safe again.
Right. And we also don't want the PR nightmare that we were the ground zero for a new resurgence. Josiah, go ahead.
I think I'm going to take us off the whole facility aspect of this. This is Josiah Trop. I'm at the Macomb Brooks Performing Arts Center in Watoma, Wisconsin, which is a small community in central Wisconsin, those who don't know that. My question is, for those who have school matinee shows, what are you doing? Because school's not in session. Did you already send your brochure, your pamphlet, or whatever? Has the school signed up for it? Have they paid? What are you doing? Because we have a show in November, and I'm still kind of leery on if schools are going to be in session. Are the administration not going to allow them to go because of all these restrictions? What's happening? Has anyone had those conversations yet?
Thanks, Josiah. That's great direction. Jen, go ahead.
We would normally be mailing our school brochure to teachers in the next couple weeks. We usually do that early May, and what we've decided to do, because teachers aren't there, obviously, is that brochure is still in production, so we're still working on it. We're going to email it out to all the teachers, because we have some who like to take care of that kind of stuff during the summer months and work ahead. And so we're going to email it out to the ones that are interested, but we are going to save mailing until August, around the time that they're arriving back at schools for in-service, which is normally way later than we would do it, but I'd rather have it physically fall into their hands at a time we know that they're there. But that also gives us time that if for some reason the schools aren't going to be back in session in the fall, it gives us a chance to kind of figure out a plan B and kind of rearrange our strategy. So right now we're just planning to do a digital launch.
Thanks, Jen. Amy?
Yeah, so I'm in Appleton. I'm working on our education programming right now. I've decided just to pause right now because I'm talking with a few school districts to kind of get an idea of what the fall is going to look like. I'm getting the sense that some may not take field trips. I'm also talking with our facilities, and I usually do two shows in a day. They don't think they can clean enough between the two shows for me to do two shows in one day, because they can't do a deep clean in the 60 to 90 minutes that I usually have between two shows. So if I am business as usual and can have kids in the building, I'm probably going down to one show for a while, just so we have the opportunity to do that deep clean after the kids have been in the building. So just talking with some schools right now, trying to get a sense of maybe what the fall will look like. And if I do anything before school is out, it'll be in a digital form, so I have a chance to adjust if necessary if we find out more information in the summer.
Thanks, Amy. Mary, go ahead.
No, I love these sessions, but every time we get done, I have 14 more things to do or think about. And Amy just gave me another one. What we did is we're anticipating if schools allow field trips, there just won't be as many, be it a matter of time or funds or what. So the first thing we did is cut our number of school time shows by about a third, and just reduce the number of offerings. And we usually send it out in April, because a lot of the teachers do like to plan at the end of one year for the next year. So ours is just being finished up this week as we speak. Our intent is to send it out electronically to the teachers in the schools, like Jen, wait until more like August to do a mail one when we see if the schools really are going to be back in session. Kind of hope for the best and hope that enough schools respond to fill the lower number of shows. But we also do 2 in a day. So thank you, Amy, for reminding me about the whole cleaning between two shows things, because we had not addressed that as yet. Now we will have to take a look at that. But we're kind of going optimistically that the schools will be back, that they will do some field trips at least. And we're just trying to condense them down to fewer shows spread over the school year.
Thanks, Mary. Other comments on the school topic? Josiah, does that help, or do you have follow-up questions after the comments that you've heard?
I don't think so, but if we can kind of have this thread going about the school stuff, that would be awesome. Because I'm still kind of lost, because I'm like, my school district here doesn't tell me much, so I'm probably gonna have to like call them and say, hey, what's going on, you know, what are we gonna do, this type of stuff. But it would be good to have this type of thread going still about the school matinee stuff, to keep me sane at least.
Yes, and I would recommend maybe we could start a forum on the new website to keep that conversation going as well. Yes. Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I've got a husband that's on a school board, and to be perfectly honest, next fall is still a little far off their radar. They're worried about finishing out the school year, trying to figure out how they're going to get their kids back their stuff that are locked up in these school buildings, how they're going to do grades, how they're going to do graduation. So they've got a lot on their plate to try to wrap up this school year, and they haven't really thought about, I mean, they are thinking about the fall, but it's still on their radar in terms of how they're going to finish up this year, and then how they're going to figure out what to do in the fall. So they're thinking about it, but they're not all quite there yet. So
Thanks, Amy. Just to let everybody know, we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to take Sally and then Kim, or maybe not Kim. But I definitely think we'll do a part 2 to this. So I'll take Sally's comment and I'll kind of wrap it up and give a preview of at least what I have in my notes for part 2. Sally, go ahead.
Okay, Sally at the Arts Council of Southwood County. I just had a conversation a couple days ago with our PAC director, and our PAC is attached to the high school. And he was going under the direction of the administration not to schedule anything all summer in the PAC for now. He said everything is still up in the air for the fall. But he said, as far as the summer, we had a couple of dance studios in the area wanted to postpone their dance recitals that are normally held in May and June. And he's struggling because they're not quite sure how to do this with no direction at all. So he's hesitant. He's also on our board, and he's hesitant about anything, even in the fall.
Thanks, Sally.
Yep.
Kim, go ahead. Kim, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Kim at the Wild Center. We're not even going to put any children's programming in the fall. We're just going to put it into probably February, March, April, and see what we can do there. That will give us some time to figure it out. I know you don't always get the ideal situations for routings and things, but we just feel a little safer that way with the little kiddos being involved.
Thanks, Josiah.
So that brings up a thought, because I already have my 2 shows booked. Do I go back to the agent and say, hey, let's look at a different date for the fall one into spring? Or do we just keep the fall one, hope for the best, and then if it doesn't go, then change it? I mean, I'm not really sure, because I haven't heard anything from the agent yet. So I'm not really sure what to do about that point right now.
Jillian.
So Josiah, most of the agents I think are thinking this way, because I'm sure that they're getting the same thing. Like I said, for my 3 concerts that I have in the fall, I've just sent emails to them and said, hey, you know, should we consider a rain date in case we aren't able to be open in the fall or we can't make this work? And most of the responses I've gotten have been very positive. I mean, they still want you to keep your date, but they're like us, wanting to, you know, if it doesn't happen, they still want to know that you have something on your calendar for them. So I would just reach out. Probably they're in the process of reaching out to you too, because I know the agents I've talked to are also having this similar conversation in their agencies.
Thanks, Jillian. Karen, did you have, I know I've probably been missing your physical hand. Did you want to share anything, or did you want to send some questions out to me or to the listserv? Because again, I think we're going to do a continuation of this conversation. So if you have questions, we can do them in the part 2. But I wanted to give you an opportunity since I've been ignoring you.
I haven't felt ignored. There's just a lot of people who have a lot to share, which is awesome. I do have some questions, and I can put them out on the listserv. I see Anne is putting something in the chat box, so that's cool. So I'm interested in what you think your audiences are going to consider the new normal. as you guys want to continue to offer normal experiences in a time that's not going to be normal. And so whether or not anyone has had any bandwidth at all to even think about surveying audience for expectation in the next month or so. It's been too early, I think, to do it yet. But so a bunch of questions coming up from this conversation, and I think, again, I'll put them out there, but just, yeah, not to take any more time now because I know you want to wind things up.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, no, I think that's really a good one that we can tackle during the next session, because again, we've mentioned we don't want people to feel uncomfortable, but for some people, having everybody in a mask might make them more comfortable, you know, while some may feel uncomfortable by that. So it's definitely, like you say, going to be a new normal, and how are we going to define that to best serve our audiences? So I think what we'll do is I'll put out a part 2 to this session to continue the conversation next week. What I think we'll move into then is talking a little bit more in depth about when we do come back, what kinds of operational things are we going to need to consider, including the social distancing, communicating to our audiences what we're going to be doing differently in this age of new normal, as far as cleaning goes, as far as offering seats, you know, to spread people out, and how that's going to impact our capacities. The whole idea of temping people at the door with thermometers, restrooms, lobbies, wearing masks, all of that. I think we can do a deeper dive, and even talk about what happens if, you know, we do have a small resurgence in our area, and how we handle that and the communication with that. And then if there's time in that next session, we can talk about as well rental contracts. You know, if for those of you that do rentals, are you holding off on contracts for the fall? Is that going to continue to oversaturate our upcoming season for things that are being rescheduled, or for new rentals that want to come in? I know for me, I'm holding any contracts until I'm back in the office. So we can talk about that. And then we can also, you know, revisit kind of what I mentioned at the beginning about if we want to talk ticket pricing, and if that's impacting what we're doing for the upcoming season and into the future, as well as, you know, if Arts Midwest doesn't happen, you know, what are the realities for us trying to book a season without that conference? And then, you know, what is the impact further down on our 21-22 season? So lots more to discuss. So watch for that next week. It'll probably be either like Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday, around somewhere in the 10 a.m. to noon time. Hopefully this is a good time for everybody. So I think that's it. Unless there's any final comments that somebody really, really needs to make, then I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.